Well, cheers, everybody. It's yet again another Monday night, and I'm so pleased to be able to be here live with you to share some stories about wine. Um, as you can see, I'm here alone today. Ken is venturing off to Italy this week. He, as many of you probably know, does a lot of consulting work in his old field as a geologist, and so he's doing some work for a company supplying water or trying to find water supplies in Africa, and he's in Italy doing that right now. So hope he's having a great time. I know Maya's with him, so he has got a chance to do some exploring. And Chuck is off to Canada. He went skiing with his brother. He's skiing several mountains north of Quebec, and I've seen a few texts from him. Looks like he's having a fantastic time. And Marika needed to be with her mom tonight, so it leaves you with me, and I hope you enjoy my company for the next hour. A couple things, as I always do at the beginning of the show. If you are here for the very first time, please let us know that you're here by making a comment in the comment section. Say hello, let us know you're here. Also, if you like our broadcast today, like it, share it with your friends. If you think any of your friends would be interested in this type of topic. And if you haven't yet subscribed to our YouTube or our Facebook channel, you can do that now. If you're on YouTube, I think it's right below here. There's a subscribe button. And if you're on Facebook, there's a little bell somewhere on the screen. If you click that bell, you'll subscribe to our channel. And as I say every week, if you subscribe, you'll get notified whenever we go live here at Hermit Woods. And that would be every Monday night. And also occasionally from far-flung corners of the world, maybe up from the ski slopes or from the ocean, or who knows where we'll show up next. So subscribe to our channel and find out. So that's got that intro out of the way. I didn't have Ken here interrupting me, so I was able to get through it pretty quickly. And let me see before I go on any further who's on. I see Karen's here, and Priscilla, Christine, and looks like that's it. Cheers. Let us know what you're drinking. I am drinking Red Scare. That's what I thought I would start out with. This is one of my favorite wines. And if you're out there, Matt, I think it's your favorite as well. So I hope you can tune in and we can talk a little bit about it. So what I thought I would do today, since I'm here alone, I don't have anybody to have a conversation with. I'm going to have a conversation with you guys. And I know that many of you are very familiar with what I'm going to be talking about today. So if you have comments or questions that could help guide the conversation, or maybe have questions for me that you aren't familiar with as I go along, you'll share them, and I'll do my best to be paying attention to the comments. And I see right away Matt is here, and hi Matt, and of course Matt has a favorite of Red Scare as well. So what I thought I would do today is talk a little bit about wine appreciation, and as I said, we have done this before on the show in bits and pieces at different times over the last couple of years. And we often talk a little bit about this whenever we do a wine tasting, but I'm going to go over it again. And hopefully there'll be some folks that are new to us out there that can learn a little bit from this opportunity. And so we're going to, and also as we go through some of these wines, I'm going to try them with some of the food that Travis has made. Once again, Travis has made a really nice collection of our local cheeses and meats. And much of this is on our charcuterie board when you order that here at the winery. And we'll try some of these wines with these different foods and see how they go. I'm going to have a sip of my Red Scare. Such a delicious wine. So let's talk about wine appreciation. And I'm going to start with, years ago, 15, 20 years ago, I, like a lot of you out there, was just beginning to learn about wine and beginning to have an opportunity to go wine tasting. Actually, more like 30 years ago, when I was living in California, I visited lots of wineries and had a chance to try lots of different wines. But way back then, I was quite the novice. I didn't really know what I was doing. So it's taken me many years to really develop the expertise that I need to really fully understand and appreciate what's going on in my glass. And over the years, having tried such a wide variety of wines, I'm able to decipher more and more details about those wines as I observe them, taste them, smell them. So this is a really important skill. If you're going to really appreciate wines and you're going to enjoy wines, you really want to develop this skill. And there's no better way to develop it than to practice. So as we always say, we strongly recommend that you take the time to practice these things whenever you can, whether it's a bottle of Hermit Woods or a bottle you purchased from the local liquor store, or one that you gathered while you were wine tasting. Whenever you open a new bottle, you want to dig deep into it and really try and understand what's going on with that bottle of wine. So let's talk about some of those things that you need to do to do that. And let's see, before I go any further, I want to say, look at the comments here. Oh, Karen's having Hermitage, and Christine's got Northern Berry Red. Excellent. And Matt says, 43 years ago, my folks gave us all a great basic foundation in France, Spain, and Portugal. That's a big deal, a basic foundation in 3 countries. They were very generous to give you that. That's excellent. And I see Gary's here saying hello to everybody. So let's start with a couple basics. First of all, I think all of you that are here right now know why you swirl your wine. I often joke that you swirl your wine so that the people you're with know that you know what you're doing. But of course, that's not really the reason. The reason we swirl our wine is 2 major pieces. One is to observe the legs and the tears. These are the drips of wine that fall down the side of the glass as you stop the swirling. And those legs and tears, if you get good at understanding what they're expressing, you will learn about how much sugar and how much alcohol is in the wine by observing the legs and tears. Typically, the more tears, the higher the alcohol, and the slower they go down the glass, the higher the viscosity or sugar. So, but those are sort of the basic, sort of generic. The best way to learn about legs and tears is to put a wine that you know the sugar and alcohol content in your glass, swirl it, and observe the legs and tears and see how they look. And then try another wine that has a slightly different variation of alcohol and sugar, and do it again. And you'll start to see differences in the way the wine falls down the glass. So that's one really important reason why we swirl a wine. The other important reason, and probably the most important reason, is we want to really fully appreciate the aroma of the wine. And by swirling the wine, you spread the wine around the outside of the glass, giving more surface area to the wine, so more volatile gases will escape from the wine and fill the globe of the glass up with those aromas. So when you put your nose to the glass, those aromas are freely escaping out of the top of the glass as you're swirling. It's really important to understand the aroma before you taste the wine, because your taste buds are over half aroma. You have to perceive the smell well before your taste buds are really going to be able to appreciate the taste well. And so it's really important with any bottle of wine, and really anything that you want to fully appreciate the taste. Food it goes the same way. Smell the food, smell the wine, and get an understanding of what it smells like. Then when you put the food or the wine in your mouth, you're going to be much more prepared to understand the flavors and tastes that you're getting off of that wine. The other thing I suggest is don't just smell it once and then start drinking. When you're smelling the wine, start to decide what is it you're smelling. Start to put some names to the things that are coming off that wine. And at first, you may not, this isn't necessarily easy. You may have a hard time determining the nuances or figuring out exactly what something smells like, but go with your gut. The first thing that you smell, put a name to it. It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. What matters is that there's a certain smell that's going to remind you of something. What is it reminding you of? Is it the fruit that the wine is made from? Is there some other smells that are going on that are affecting that aroma? And start putting some names to those things. This is how you develop a language. And if you do this long enough, your language is going to start getting dialed in, and you're going to have a better ability to nuance the various components of a wine as you build a vocabulary for it. So take the time to smell the wine, appreciate the aroma, identify the names of things that you feel are coming off of that wine, Oftentimes there's like I said, specific fruits that are within the wine that are going to give you some of the aromas. There are also other components as the various parts of this wine come together in the production of it. It's going to also develop some smells that aren't part of the ingredients. Some of you who've talked about this before may know the difference between bouquet and aroma. The aroma references the smells that are coming from the ingredients of the wine, and bouquet references those smells that are sort of the sum of the parts that actually are aromas that are not included in the ingredients, like you might say earthiness or leather or floral or grassy. These are things that are in the wine, but they are an aroma that you get off of the wine. So aroma and bouquet, that's important. Another thing before you taste the wine is oftentimes people want to check out the color and clarity. Now, color and clarity, again, doesn't tell you much unless you know what you're referencing. So if you don't know anything about the wine at all, then you may not know what color to expect, and you may not know what clarity to expect. As you become more knowledgeable about wines, then you can begin to expect certain color and clarity notes in different wines. One of the things that's also important to talk about is as a wine ages, its color changes. And again, as you become more knowledgeable about different wines and try older wines, you'll be able to see how those colors are changing. And again, it takes a little bit of background knowledge to really know how to understand it when you first look at your glass of wine. But as you become more experienced and you know more about the different types of wine that you're drinking, you're going to be able to become good at knowing whether that color is right or wrong, or whether it's got the right clarity or not. Certainly, if you're drinking Hermit Woods wines, you know what to expect if you've had our wines numerous different times. And if something was to change and you notice it, what's causing that change? Maybe you're drinking a wine that's 5 years old, so the color is going to change a little bit from one that's young and fresh. So again, practice and observation, and eventually you'll start developing a better vocabulary to talk about the legs and the tears and the aromas and the smells that are coming off that wine, and the various other components of clarity and color. All right, enough of that. Now we're gonna taste it. So this is the Red Scare. Another thing to think about, when you put the very first taste in your mouth, you want to be sure and fill your mouth up with that wine. So a couple suggestions: you're going to slosh it around in your mouth like you do with mouthwash. Really cover the whole inside of your mouth. You have taste buds that are all over your mouth, and those taste buds are going to perceive taste differently depending on where in your mouth the wine is hitting. So you really want to soak your whole mouth with that wine. The other thing that I often do is breathe air through the front of your mouth and blow the wine back toward the back of your mouth, like so. You'll really get a strong sense of the flavors, and you'll pick up some more of the aromas and help you pick apart what are you tasting. And now again, take this time to start putting names to what you're tasting. Is it the fruit you're tasting? Are there other components that you taste that don't seem to be about the fruit, but are maybe something about the combination of the ingredients in the glass? So begin to note the taste. The other thing you want to note during this stage is how does the wine feel in your mouth? Texture. Is it dry? Is it grippy? Is it smooth? Is it tart? Is it acidic? What are the components that are sort of expressing themselves in your mouth as you're sloshing the wine around in your mouth? And then you want to take a moment. You want to swallow the wine and take a moment to consider the finish. After you swallowed the wine, did it sort of disappear? Did it linger in your mouth for a little time? Um, Again, it's really important to understand how that wine is finishing as compared to how it should. Some wines, lighter, fruitier, often white wines, are going to finish more cleanly. They have less tannins, so they're not going to grip the side of your mouth. The same as a red wine. So it might have a shorter finish, or it might not linger at all in your mouth. Whereas a big bold red has lots of tannins, and those tannins are going to want to grip to the side of your mouth and create that wine, cause that wine to sort of linger in flavor even after you've swallowed it. So again, these are areas that you can consider to determine whether this is a wine. First, to describe the wine, and then determine whether it's one that you like or don't like. So each step in this process, color, clarity, aroma, taste, mouthfeel, finish, each of these areas are going to contribute something to your opinion about that wine. And some of those things you're really going to like, and maybe some of those things you're not going to like as much. That's what you're trying to find out. What are the various components of this wine that you really like, and what are those that you're maybe not as crazy about? You do that enough with enough wines, and you start beginning to build a really good vocabulary that helps you describe those things that are important in wine to you, and those things maybe you'd like to avoid. And the better you do that, the better you're going to be able to pick out wines when you go to the wine shop and you talk to the wine shop owner and describe the kinds of things that you really like or appreciate about a wine. And that wine shop owner then can help you find wines that fit the various components that you're looking for. In the ideal world, you will find all of those components pleasing, and you will enjoy the wine, and it will soon become one of your favorites. When you sort of hit it on all fronts, you like the aroma, you like the smell, you like the bouquet, you like the taste, you like how it feels in your mouth, you like how it finishes. When all of those things come together well for you, you know you found a wine that you really like. And the more you remember about that, the more you'll be able to figure out how to repeat that again and find another wine that you like in the future. So this wine happens to hit all the high marks for me. This is our Red Scare, and it's definitely a favorite. And I think I'm going to have some of this with food, but I'm going to first see how everybody's doing here. Let's see. Matt's pondering opening a Cottage Red. It was made at 55 Taylor Road. Yes, Cottage Red. So Cottage Red, Matt, if you don't remember, is what we used to call in the real early hobby days. We used to refer to a wine called a bedpan wine, and we did that because at some point in the production of that wine, we used a bedpan to capture the drippings from the press, and somebody came up with this name bedpan wine. Really, though, it has nothing to do with the wine. What that wine is a second press. This is actually pretty common. People do this all over the world. You make a first press grape wine of whatever grapes. You squeeze those grapes. Oftentimes, when you're making a second press, you're going to squeeze those grapes lightly and extract the juice from the skins and the pulp. And then you would take those skins and pulp and put them back in a fermenter, add some more sugar so that you can get the alcohol that you need, and ferment the leftover fruit a second time, and you get what's called a second press wine. It's certainly not going to be of the same quality as the first press, but it still can offer a good basic offering of wine that can often be very pleasing. So in the very beginning, we used to do second presses of all of our big bold reds, Cabernets. These were the times when we were ordering fruit from Chile and from California, and so on the bigger full-bodied reds, we usually get the opportunity to do a second press and get a little bit more out of the fruit and create a little bit more wine. We don't do that any longer. We did that while we were making grape wines. The fruits that we work with now in the winery don't lend themselves very well to a second press, so we no longer do that. So Cottage Red that you referred to is a second press of I believe either the Cabernet or it could either be Cabernet Merlot or the Sangiovese that we made. So that's what you're drinking. And yes, those were all made at Taylor Road. Looks like Marika has a comment. She can't be here tonight, as I said. Hello, Marika. Glad you could join us. And let's see. Matt says, do you ever do a free run before first press wines? So what you're referring to, what Matt's referring to as a free run is when you are fermenting blueberries or blackberries or grapes or whatever the fruit you're fermenting, when you pump or shovel that fruit into the press, the first liquid to come off of that press before you put any pressure on it at all is called a free run. It's just the liquid that comes right off of the ferment. You haven't squeezed the grapes at all or the fruit at all, and so that's free run. What often happens is winemakers will collect the free run and separate that into a separate container and then press the wine and collect the pressed wine. The pressed wine is going to be different than the free run. You're going to get more tannins. You're going to get different flavor characteristics off of the pressed wine. Then you have the two wines to blend to create the kind of taste and nuance that you might be looking for. So you might find that the free run is really delicious. It's fruity. It has many of the components you want, but maybe it's missing a little something. Maybe it's missing some of the tannin component that you want. So you could add some of the pressed wine into the free run, some or all of it, whatever you might decide, to determine what the correct balance between the mouthfeel and the taste that you're looking for. So that's how winemakers use free run versus pressed wine. And it gives you just a little bit more control over the finished flavor and character of that final wine. So let me try the Red Scare with some of our food. And we've done this before, so I have some good ideas about what might work. So food and wine pairing, the first thing I like to say is that everybody's afraid, or a lot of people are afraid to really jump in and explore wine and food pairing. And you really needn't be. People often think, well, I need a chef or a professional to help me understand how to pair my wine, or I need to take a class in pairing. And quite frankly, you don't. If you put food and wine in your mouth together and your eyes light up and you get a big smile and you go, wow, that really tastes good, well, you have a good pairing. If you do the same and you put the food and the wine in your mouth and you realize, something's not right. That wine tasted really good a minute ago until I put some food in my mouth and blended it with that food. Now the wine doesn't taste so good anymore. Well, that's probably not a very good pairing. And there's a lot of variation in between. To get good at it, all you got to do is keep trying different types of foods with different types of wine, and try some that you're pretty sure are not going to work. So you know what doesn't work, and then you begin to come up with the reasons why. Is it something in the food? Is it something in the wine? What's not working well together? And after you try enough wine and try enough food, you'll start to get really good at deciding what goes good together in your mouth and why. I'm going to start with a nice piece of cheddar cheese and see how my Red Scare goes with it. So it worked. It wasn't a bad pairing. The Red Scare or the cheese didn't get made worse by being together in my mouth. However, it wasn't an ideal pairing either. What I found as I was chewing the cheddar is that the cheddar began to overwhelm my mouth, making it harder for me to understand the nuances in the wine any longer. So now what's lingering in my mouth is the cheddar flavor, and it's absent of the wine. The cheddar sort of has taken over. It's very oily. It's a rich flavor. It's coating my mouth a little bit with the cheddar, with the characteristics of the cheddar cheese, the creaminess of it. And the wine is having a hard time competing. So I'm going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, this cheddar cheese with this wine is probably somewhere in the middle, maybe a 4. Because I don't want to take away from the wine. I spent good money on this wine. I want to enjoy it. I want to appreciate it. So by putting something in my mouth that's going to take away from the wine or not let the wine fully express itself isn't helping. So check one more time. You know, when I first get the Red Scare in my mouth, it's perfect because I can taste the cheese and the wine together. But as soon as I start chewing them, I realize that that cheddar cheese has a little bit more dominance, and I don't want that. I want my Red Scare to come through in all its glory. So let me see if I can try something lighter, a different cheese. Let me try this one here. Not as sharp as the cheddar. A little creamier cheese, and it goes better. It definitely is better. I can still feel that Red Scare. I can still taste the Red Scare lingering in my mouth as I'm chewing the cheese. Oh, that works. Let's try something with the balsamic fig and the Red Scare. And this is what you got to do. You just got to try different foods and different wines and see how they work. I think I need some more Red Scare. Hope I make it through the show. So a little Red Scare with some bread with some balsamic fig on it. That is also better. So actually this one, I'm going to rate on my scale of 1 to 10, maybe as a 6 or a 7. I found the balsamic fig actually brought some of the fruitiness of the wine out, made the fruitiness express itself a little bit more, softened the tannins in the wine. And so I found that to be a nice pairing. And that's a really enjoyable, the balsamic was a really enjoyable finish. I liked how that the fruit lingers in my mouth and the fruit of the wine sort of comes forward as I coat my mouth with the balsamic fig. So it's a good pairing. Maybe not perfect. Why not perfect? Well, maybe the balsamic fig is still a pretty dominant flavor. So it's not a perfect balance with the wine, but it's closer. Maybe 7 out of 10. Yeah, definitely a 7. All right. So let's go on to another wine. Let's talk about a few different things as we do. I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to do something else with this next wine. I'm going to do a side-by-side with our Petite Blue and our Petite Blue Reserve. We'll put Petite Blue here. And Reserve here. So this is going to really challenge me to use my skills to try and figure out what's the difference between these two wines. They're both very similar, but as you know, they have some significant differences. Petite Blue was made sort of in the style we often say of a Burgundy. It's lighter, it's fruitier, it's designed to be a wine that you can drink easily with or without food. It drinks very nicely as just a wine to be had on its own. And the Petite Blue Reserve was made to be a little bit more body, a little bit more dryness, and maybe a touch more food friendly because of the addition of tannins. The difference in how they're made, the Petite Blue was really aged in stainless steel for the purposes of retaining the fruitiness. We didn't spend as much time in maceration on the Petite Blue, so we didn't extract as much character and flavor from the skins, whereas the Reserve, we spend more time macerating and a little bit more aggressive on the press, and then we age the Reserve in French oak barrels for 3 or 4 months, giving it some extra tannin and some flavor characteristics that are developed out of the barrel. So those are the two different wines, and now we're going to taste them side by side and see how they're comparing. And I can look right away at the color. And one of the things that I always note is the deep blue. I mean, the Petite Blue Reserve tends to have a richer color. It's a little darker. It's got a little more body. It's got a little more fuller flavor, and so it's usually a little bit darker and heavier in the color. And clarity wise, they're about the same. They both about have the same clarity. And I'm going to start with swirling the Petite Blue. One thing I noticed is a little bit of heat. I'm getting a little bit of that alcohol, and some of that has to do with how far into the glass I put my nose. And sometimes when you're smelling a wine, try putting your nose in different places, digging it right into the glass, holding your nose a little bit above the glass, at the top of the rim or at the bottom of the rim. You'll notice, as you get good at this, you'll notice different variations of the smell based on where you put your nose and where those aromas are coming off the glass. So, and when I stick my nose way in there, I get more heat, and that's really the alcohol coming off of the wine. So I'm going to hold my nose a little bit further above, and then I get more fruit. If I hold my nose a little bit away from the rim, I get the alcohol and the fruit come together, and I get what I think is more representative of what that wine smells like. Oop. Sorry. So before I taste it, I'm gonna try the reserve, see how it smells differently. Oh, very different, actually, very different. There's sort of, I guess, sort of a candy character, and we know that neither of these wines are sweet, so I don't know where that's coming from, but there's candied fruit, not just a fruit, not a fresh fruit character like I'm getting off the Petite. Very interesting. I've never actually, or I have. It's just been a long time since I've had these two side by side like this. And the noses are very different. I do get the character. I do get a little bit of the character of the barrel in here, the little vanilla, and I still get more heat on the Petite Blue. Let's see. As promised, the Petite Blue is light. It is fruity. It doesn't have a long linger in your mouth. You can taste it a little while after you finish, but the flavors kind of disappear pretty quickly in your mouth after you swallow. Very easy to drink, very refreshing. And now let's see what the reserve. A little more body, a lot more tannins. I can really feel the grip on my mouth, and it does linger a lot longer than the Petite Blue, and I think for that reason, it's going to pair nicely with maybe the cheddar, maybe the heavier cheese. Let's see what happens when I pair the same cheddar that I did with the Red Scare with the Petite Blue. Again, for the same reasons as the Red Scare, I found that cheddar cheese to be just a little too strong. It's not a terrible pairing. I certainly don't have a problem having the two together, but again, it's going to be maybe on the 3 or 4 side of a pairing. It takes too much away from my wine. I'm enjoying the cheese quite a bit, but I lose the wine in it too easily. See how it holds up to the barrel aged reserve. Certainly better Actually, much better. I think we're now talking 6 or 7, like we did with the last change of cheese. What I did with the Red Scare, I think the Petite Blue Reserve holds up to that cheddar much better than the Petite Blue. I still don't think it's perfect. It's not. It's not. Both the cheese and the wine aren't being elevated to what I would call perfection. But again, it's a good pairing. They both taste good in my mouth. I'm going to check in with you, see if there's any comments. Let's see. Yes, Mariko, Travis did make a nice collection of foods. He always does. Can always count on him. And Matt wants to know if anybody's tried fig Newtons with Red Square. What an interesting question. I certainly have not. I don't think I've had a fig Newton in years. Let's see, not tonight, but can Marika post a link to the different glasses class back during COVID? That was most enlightening. Yes, and we can do that for sure. Let me speak a little bit to that. That's a good topic. Glasses do make a big difference as to how one experiences the wine. And typically there are 3 or 4 or 5 different types of glasses that are going to lend themselves to enjoying different wines for different reasons. And I'm not going to go deep into it because we don't have those varieties of glasses here in front of us. But the things that glasses do is, I just talked about where your nose is relative to the globe of the glass. Well, the shape of the glass delivers the aroma through the top of the glass differently depending on how wide it is and how big the hole is at the top, or how narrow it might be and how small the hole is, or how wide it is with a small hole at the top. Different size and shapes glasses are going to deliver the aroma and the alcohol and the fruit out of the glass in a different way. And for that reason, some glasses lend themselves better to exploring red wines than whites. Red wines tend to have a bigger bowl and a narrower, no, actually that's not true, a bigger bowl and a wider top. And a white wine glass is going to be a little bit narrower with a smaller opening at the top. You're going to find a champagne flute, very, very narrow. The bubbles are what deliver the aroma out of a champagne. You don't need to swirl it. So the taller, narrower glass allows for those aromas to just shoot right up out of the top of the glass in the form of the CO2 being released from the bubbles. And let's see, what other types of glasses? Again, not having all of the different styles in front of me, it's hard for me to speak to it from memory. But really, it's just about the shape of the glass and how that shape influences the way in which you experience the flavor and aroma that's coming off the wine. I do want to talk about, some people really like those glasses, the stemless glasses that just sit on the counter. And a stemless glass is going to have to be held in this manner, in something that sort of I find difficult about stemless glasses is your body heat is transferred through the glass into the wine. So if you're drinking a white wine and you're holding the glass without the stem, you're going to transmit heat into that wine. And if you don't consume it soon enough, that wine's going to warm up to the temperature of your hand. And the same with any wine. If you have to hold the glass, you're going to transmit body heat into the glass. If you hold the stem, you're transmitting far less body heat into that glass, and the wine will hold its temperature longer. Oftentimes you see people doing wine tastings holding the glass way down here at the base. That minimizes any risk of warming up the glass, especially if you're going to be holding that glass for a long period of time. Gradually, you're going to warm the stem up, even just holding it down here. So people who are very concerned about the temperature are going to want to hold the glass at the very bottom and ensure the least amount of heat transfer. Temperature is important. We talked about this a lot. White wines are typically served at around 45, 48 degrees, somewhere in there. It is not okay to drink a white wine coming right out of your refrigerator. It's usually too chilled. I shouldn't say it's not okay. If that's how you enjoy it, that's the way you should drink it. But if you really want to fully appreciate the aromas of a white wine, you want to warm it up a bit. Aroma is best experienced at warmer temperatures. As you chill the wine down, the colder it gets, the more locked up those aromas are going to be in the wine, and the harder time you're going to have experiencing them. So warm your whites up a little bit before serving them. Don't take them straight out of the fridge and pour them into a glass. Give them a chance to warm up. And red wines, same thing. Oftentimes people think of red wines drinking at room temperature. Room temperature, not the room temperature that you're comfortable in, the room temperature the wine is comfortable in. And so really around 60 degrees is ideal for most red wines, 60, 65 at the most. There are some examples that some would claim would the bigger, more full-bodied reds would hold up to a higher temperature, maybe 68 or even 70 degrees. But beyond that, your wine's going to be too warm. So if you're drinking a red wine in the summer and that wine has been sitting out in your living room, is likely going to be too warm. Put it in the refrigerator for 20 minutes or 30 minutes before you serve it. Bring that temperature down a little bit, and you'll be able to appreciate that wine a little bit better. So temperature makes a big difference. And so again, a stem glass versus a stemless glass helps you maintain that temperature. So we'll see if we could dig up that video we did on the glassware, and it'll shed some more light on that for you, Matt. And let's see, a couple other comments. Let's see. So stemless is not good. Actually, Karen, lots of people like stemless. There's reasons from a stylistic perspective. Some people prefer that type of glass. But honestly, if you're really going to appreciate your wine to its fullest, I think stemmed glasses are the better choice. It's my opinion. I think you'll find I share that with a lot of others as well. But if you like the stemless glasses, they certainly can be made to use. Leave the wine on your counter. Don't be holding it in your hand or on your table. Pick it up only when you're drinking. You'll deliver less warmth into the wine that way. And again, we're talking nuances. I mean, at the end of the day, we're out there to enjoy what we're doing and enjoy the wine we're having and enjoy the food. And we don't want to get all tangled up in all these little nuances. Not every day we don't. But we do when we're trying to appreciate and we're trying to learn. So when you're in a learning mode, when you're trying to pair wines, you want to get your temperatures right. You want to get your food and wine pairings to be as easily understood as you can. So you want to have all the variables as tightly dialed down as you can. If you're just having a glass of wine in the afternoon, don't worry about any of it. Just enjoy the wine. And if you want to enjoy it a little colder, go colder. If you want to enjoy it a little warmer, let it warm up a bit. But when you're trying to learn about wine, you want to try and control those variables as much as possible. Drink the wine as the winemaker intended it to be drank. Straws are right out. Absolutely. No straws, Matt. You don't be drinking wine with straws. Again, back to what I just said. If you're not concerning yourself with trying to understand the wine or learn about the wine and you just want to consume it, maybe you're in a hurry, maybe you need a sippy glass because you're where you're at or you're on a hike or something, and then a straw is fine. But if you're trying to learn about a wine, you're never going to learn about it through a straw. So I think that's what you were referring to. All right, so let's see. Something else I didn't talk about, retronasal. We've talked about this a lot on the show over the years. So when you smell a wine, with the front of your nose behaves a certain way as it perceives smell coming from the front. When you swallow the wine, and those residual wine is sort of lining your throat as you swallow it, if you push air up your throat and through your nose, you're going to push the aroma or the bouquet of that wine through the backside of your nose. And you have a different perception of smell on the backside of your nose than you do on the front. If you're not familiar with this, you may not perceive a difference the first time you try it. So don't worry about it. But as you try more wines and as you get better at experimenting or exploring the different aromas and tastes of wines, you will start to notice a difference between the front smell and the back smell. And that difference helps you understand better how to perceive the flavor, how to perceive the aroma, and give you some more labels you might be able to put on that aroma that you couldn't perceive going through the front of your nose. So take a moment at the end of your tasting to breathe out through your nose and experience the aroma of the wine from the back side of your nose. We call that retronasal. Swallow and then breathe out. And you start smelling the wine from the other side. Again, all you're trying to do is understand what is happening in the wine and figure out how to label it for the future. So you know how to describe what's working for you and what's not working for you in the flavor and smell of that wine. Let's see, Priscilla says, this is probably outside the realm of this, but I wonder if the, what is that word? Anosmia, that is hallmark of COVID, forever changes the palate or temporary or just temporary. I have no idea. You are absolutely right. That is way out of my realm, and I have no idea how to answer that question. So if anybody does, please share. Loss of smell, is that, I assume that word I was struggling with is a reference to loss of smell. I haven't experienced loss of smell. I did have COVID 6 months or a year ago, and I never had a loss of smell, so I don't know how to speak to that. I know that lots of people have those. So if there's somebody who did lose their smell through COVID, if that changed your experience with the wines you were used to drinking, please let us know. Be interested to know that. So side by side, Petite Blue and Petite Blue Reserve. Let's move on to the next one. Actually, before we do that, I'm going to try some of these wines with the different foods. We haven't done that enough. And of course, it gives me another excuse to pour some more. And I'm going to try the Reserve first with a couple of these different foods in front of me. So we have some salamis. Let's see how the Reserve holds up to some salami. A little spicy, a little fatty. Actually, very nice. One of the things about the fat on the meats here on the salami is they're not liquefied, so they're not coating your throat as much. So you can get away with a wine that's not maybe as full bodied. If you were to have a steak that had a lot of juicy fats as part of the steak, those juicy fats are going to coat your mouth and make it harder for the wine to stick to your mouth. I'm not finding the fats in the salami to be coating my mouth. I'm just enjoying the flavor of them, but they're disappearing as I swallow the food. And the thing that's making this work for me with the Petite Blue Reserve is the spiciness. This salami has a nice spice to it, and the deep blue, the Petite Blue Reserve does as well. One more time. That's right up there. That's going to be a 9, maybe even a 10. Perfect pairing. Goes really nice. Let's see how this other cheese goes. Again, the cheese isn't as good. I think it's partly because there's a fairly high acidity to this wine, and that acidity is competing with the cheese, and so the two aren't working that great in my mouth together. Again, it's back down to a 5 with this particular cheese. How about some nuts? Walnuts. And walnuts have a lot of tannin in them. There's a moment in my mouth where I found the reserve and the walnuts tasted good for a few moments as I was chewing. But in the end, those walnuts really dominate my mouth and dominate the flavor. So I don't find they go as well with this wine. So how about some a little more wine here? I hope I make it through the show. Olives. Let's see what an olive does. Nope, no olives. How about some balsamic fig? The olives don't work at all. Not at all. And I think similar experience with the Red Scare, the Deep Blue, the Petite Blue Reserve, and the balsamic fig do work. And again, it's not perfect because in the end, that balsamic fig is a little too dominant for me. It doesn't allow me to fully appreciate the wine. So it works, but it's not as ideal as I would like it. So I think that's enough with Petite Blue. Let's go now to our dessert side. I got another comparison here. Deep Blue and Deep Blue Reserve. A little bit of explanation for those of you who may not remember. Deep Blue is a wine we make out of wild Maine low bush blueberries. There's a pound of blueberries in that bottle right there. And Deep Blue, like with Petite Blue, is made to be a little fruitier and express as a little more sweetness, although the sweetness is the same, the residual sugar is the same. It's going to express more sweetness in the finish. It's going to be more akin to what we say like a ruby port. It's not a port. And just to refresh everybody's memory of what a port is, first, a port is made in Porto, Portugal, or else it can't be called a port, like champagne. And a port is made by creating a grape wine. You ferment the grapes and you leave them a little sweet during fermentation. You stop the fermentation with the fruit being 2 or 3% residual sugar. You distill a portion of that wine into what is like a brandy. It's not actually brandy, but it's distilled grape juice. And you take the distilled version of that wine and add it back into the wine, which actually helps kill the fermentation and leave that sweetness in there and bring the alcohol up to 20%. That's how you make a port. You make a ruby port by aging in stainless steel, and you make a tawny port by aging at least 3 years in an oak barrel. So the tawny port is going to be a little more complex, a little less sweet, or at least perceived as less sweet, same amount of sugar potentially, but because of the tawny character and the tannins and the character you're extracting from the wood, you're going to perceive less sweetness in the reserve or in the tawny version. So that's how a port is made. We make these differently, and we actually use fermentation to get our higher alcohol. So we don't use a distilled spirit. So Ken will use a champagne yeast that allow us to ferment this to as high as 17 or 18% residual sugar. And then the reserve is aged for 3 years in barrel, just like a tawny port would be. Also significant in that is when he's aging the reserve in barrel, he's letting it oxidize. He's letting air infiltrate the pores of the wood, and that results in some evaporation of the wine. And as the wine evaporates, more air fills up the space in the top of the barrel, and that results in a little bit of oxidation. Now, because of the higher sweetness, it's about 4% residual sugar, and the higher alcohol, it can take some of that air without diminishing the flavor, and it actually ultimately enhances the flavor. After 3 years of a little bit of oxygen aging in the barrel, it really develops this nice tawny character that I really enjoy. So again, differences. You might enjoy the Deep Blue as a dessert beverage you might have on its own. Enjoy that after dinner without having a dessert. Just enjoy the sweetness and fruitiness of the Deep Blue. Or it might be paired with some lighter, sweeter type desserts. The Deep Blue Reserve, again, it might be more of a sipping wine that you may also just appreciate it without dessert on its own. but it's a little bit less sweet, or at least it appears less sweet. So if you're going to pair it with desserts, you're going to choose desserts that might not be as sweet or rich as you might pair with the deep blue. The a nice dark bitter chocolate's going to go well. Might go well with both of them, actually. I'm pretty sure it does. But the darker and more bitter the chocolate, the more likely it's going to go with the reserve. So we should try them both, see what we think. So deep blue on my right, and the reserve on my left. All right, before I taste those, I'm going to see if we have any additional comments. Matt says, deep blue reserve ice cream float was good. Excellent. Practice makes perfect. Keep practicing. Try those wines with different foods. Wow, what are we referring to? Not sure. Marika says, I think I like regular deep blue or deep red with chocolate, but the reserve I like on its own. That's interesting. I think you can make a good case for either one of these being enjoyed on their own, or if you found the right pairing, I think they could pair really nicely with a pretty wide variety of dessert types, dessert foods. I've done deep blue with raspberry sorbet before, quite tasty. The other thing to keep in mind is that all our taste buds are different. So what I might experience between these different things and the foods and wines I'm trying might be very different for you, and that's fine too. This is about you coming to an understanding of what you think makes sense and understanding what you like or don't like about a wine. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. All that matters is what you enjoy. Granted, I do believe if you do this often enough, you're going to get better and better at it. And you're going to start to sound more and more like a wine professional than you are just a casual wine drinker. Because practice, it gives you those skills that you need to really start developing your language and your understanding of the wine. The more you do it, the better you're going to be, and the more you're going to be able to perceive the nuances in the food and the wine and the pairing. So let's see, deep blue. Mm. Mm. It's almost creamy, nice and sweet, but not overly sweet, not cloyingly sweet. It leaves a linger in my mouth. I kind of like that linger. The lingers start to pick up some of the acidity in the blueberry. So that'll be interesting to note from a pairing perspective. You might enjoy this with something sweet, but if you had something sweet that had a slight hint of some acidity, you might find that works well together in your mouth. Oh, the front of my mouth just really gets this rich, creamy blueberry character it's just divine. And then as the wine settles back in my mouth, I get that little bit of acidity that's coming from the fruit. It gives me some ideas about how, having this with a dessert that has I think like a strawberry shortcake, it has that sweet tart fruit that sits on top of the maybe denser, heavier shortcake, is going to do nice with this wine, because you're going to have some of the acidity in that fruit's going to balance nicely with acidity in the wine, but then the sort of heavier character of the shortbread and the syrup that gets created in the fruit is going to balance nicely with the front of this wine. So that's what I'm thinking, but I'm going to have it with some chocolate in a second. Very different on the nose. The reserve, you get less fruitiness, you get that tawny character. I get more alcohol off of the deep blue. That's interesting. I get a kind of a caramel kind of note off of the nose on the reserve. Mm. It's so amazing to me. These wines are made almost identical. They're the same fruit. They're fermented more or less the same right out to the finish of the ferment. Really, the only difference is this one's aged in stainless steel for a year, and this one's aged in French oak for 3. They're 2 different wines. They're distinctly different, and they have a different place in your lineup of foods. Let's see how they go with chocolate. Try a piece with that deep blue. Mm. Almost find the dark chocolate a little bit too strong for the deep blue. I think it's going to go better with the reserve. And it does. I think with the deep blue, I'm going to go for a little bit lighter chocolate. I'm going to go for maybe a milk chocolate or a little less of the percentage of, what is it? I don't know what they refer to, the 70% or 80% of a chocolate. I'm going to go a little less on the bitterness characteristic of that dark chocolate for the deep blue, and you can risk a little higher bitterness for the reserve. I wonder how these go with cheese, with the cheddar, maybe that rich cheddar flavor with the reserve. Mm. Well, that's interesting. Mm. That's a surprise. I have not had this with the cheddar before. I really like it. Cheese can make a nice dessert. I don't know if any of you ever traveled in Europe, but when we were in France, very often many of the restaurants that we would dine at in France, the dessert offering was a selection of unique cheeses, and it was such a delight to have cheese for the finish of the meal instead of the beginning, which we often do here. So let me check in with everybody. Oh my goodness, it's 6:35. Have I been talking for an hour? Wow. I can't believe it. It's 6:30. It's time for the show to come to an end. I can't believe I've been talking for an hour and I still have food and wine left. Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed my little foray into wine appreciation. I'm going to be developing this presentation a little further, and we're hopefully going to be offering this instead of history. I'm going to talk more about wine appreciation at our Saturday morning loft wine tasting experience in the near future. So if you or somebody you know wants to continue to learn with us about how to best appreciate your wines, hopefully we'll be able to do that together in person sometime soon. I also want to mention, if you haven't noticed, I have this little button on my chest. We're all really excited about this. I think most of you are club members, so this may not be as relevant to you, but if you're joining us today and you are not a club member, this has a lot of relevance for you. From now on, if you purchase a tasting with us or a tour to tasting with us, you become a club member for the day. And that's what the sticker says. If you can read it, it says club member for the day. And what that means is if you purchase a tasting here, for the remainder of the day, you get club member prices on our wine and club member prices on our wine by the glass for that day. And it's a nice opportunity for you to experience our wine and enjoy it here while you're visiting with us. And if you like your experience, maybe you'll join the club with us. That would be fun too. So from now on, if you're tasting, club members get complimentary tasting. So club members don't need to worry about being a club member for the day because you are club members every day. But if you're new to Hermit Woods and you're trying our wine for the first time, taste our wine and become a club member for the day, and then you can buy our bottles of wine at club prices. And if we're holding an event that evening, you can attend the event at club prices, 20% off. So come join us for a tasting or a tour and become a club member for the day. We're excited about this. We think it's going to be fun. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it, and we'll see. So I hope if you're not a club member yet, and you come in and join us for a tasting, that you appreciate this as much as I think you will. It's going to be a lot of fun. The other thing that we're offering too, I should let you know, starting real soon, if you if you dine with us, then you get a complimentary tasting at the end, a 2-for-1 tasting for dining with us, and you get 20% off our wine on the day that you dine with us. So if you'd like to dine with us, you also will get a discount on our wine, and you'll get an opportunity to try our wine at a 2-for-1 tasting. So again, some nice opportunities to blend our restaurant experience with our tasting experience. We want to make sure people get a full, a full opportunity to appreciate everything that we have here at the winery, the food, the wine, the music experience. And so we're trying to just create these opportunities to connect those dots. So let me just see if there's any other final comments or questions before I sign off. And Matt says, can you fit us in on March 18th in the morning for that? I'm not sure what that is. If you're talking about the Loft wine tasting experience, of course we can fit you in. I hope you'll come up and join us, whether I'm doing the wine appreciation or the wine history. We'd love to have you, and I'm sure we can fit you. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate that. And Matt, thanks for coming. Thanks everybody for coming out tonight. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for sticking with me for the hour, and I hope you did learn something. I hope you enjoyed your time with us, and I'll look forward to being back here next week with the rest of my team, with Marika, Ken, and/or Chuck. I think we'll probably all be back in some form. Actually, we're going to be doing some traveling next week, so we may see you from the road. Next week is our Eastern Winery Exposition. We're going to be Ken and I and Chuck go every year to the largest wine conference on the East Coast in Lancaster. I think you're going to that, Matt. We'll look forward to seeing you there. But we will definitely be live on Monday night at 5:30, and we'll look forward to seeing you all then. Thanks for joining me. Have a good evening. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.